Welcome back to Roadmap, Auto Trader UK's product and tech podcast. Today's episode is all around the experiences and practicalities of taking products to market at Auto Trader. And we've got two superb guests today. First up, we got Dave Sykes returning to the couch.
Hello again.
So Dave is from our product and tech community, and we also got Jessie Blakeman.
Hello.
Hello, Jess.
Hi.
Jess is one of our super senior delivery leads from our go-to-market area. Combined tenure of like about 50 years, is it?
And then some.
That's why I've got a hair left.
Anyway, so us three on many occasions have done work together, but obviously I'm just going to be asking the questions, so you can't ask any to me. So it is about, the trials of tribulations of taking products to market, all the way from inception right through to the gnarly bits of getting them out in live and getting consumer feedback, and the battle scars you've had on the trunkies of the cabinet. So obviously everything starts with that little idea, but just going over to you, Dave, is actually you've got something. This is like a use case, something brand new in your mind, and how you then start to engage the likes of Jessie and a crew and that sort of that first interaction.
So I guess that idea in my mind is often not an idea that I will have had. It's generally come through either consumer feedback if it's a consumer-facing product, or customer feedback if it's a more customer-focused product. So there are different tools that we employ on our site to collect that feedback directly from users of our website when they're either not having a good time or they want to celebrate something that they've enjoyed. And then that feedback is shared with the relevant teams internally, and that often is the start of an idea or a solution to a problem. And then similarly with customers, our sales team at RDS are very good at sharing feedback pretty readily. So as soon as they start hearing that something's not working quite as well as it should, or something could be better, that's shared with the product community, and then we can try and work out how we might improve that particular product, and then go and do some more pointed research. So we've heard this if we hear it from one person, it might not be a widespread issue, right? Even if it's from you, Pete. In fact, particularly if it's from you, straight in the bin. Ignore, unsubscribe. But if we start hearing the same thing over and over again, then you start thinking, okay, this is something we need to look into.
And and Jessie, is it, when do you go, oh, here we go again?
All the time.
Yeah. Because I mean, the amount of times that I think we've been involved in stuff, and it's like, like you said, that embryonic idea that's come from something else, and then I can see Jessie coming down the corridor, and it's like, I've heard. So how do you, like, at that early stage, how do you get engaged?
I think nowadays it's a lot better. I think there used to be a lot of, oh, here we go again. In the past, when go-to-market would probably be more of a secondary thought, and it'd be like, oh, we've kind of done that, we've got this product, we're ready to launch.
Yeah.
Throw it over the fence. Can you just go and tell 13,000 customers about it? But I think now we're much better at collaborating. So I think from a go-to-market perspective, we're brought into it right from that inception stage, and we might flex in terms of how deep we go at these different stages, but we have got a lot better at starting that collaboration a lot sooner in the process.
And would you say, again, this is like, I'm thinking a bit of an A to Z type thing, but so I've been out of this area for quite a bit, so things have moved on loads. Is it when really, like Dave, from you, when do you go, actually, this is the point, I need to bring Jessie in, this has gone beyond like it's musings in my head whilst in the shower, this is like something actually we're probably going to start to test a little bit more?
Well, once you've got beyond that initial research phase and you've decided that it is something that needs to be invested in, I think it's at that point, it's right at the start of the process of actually deciding that something's being delivered. That's when we would engage, because knowing the journey that you go on from that point of deciding that you need to do something through to the point that the product's released, all of that context is then so helpful in delivering that message to the customers in the end, because you have that full story. You know all of the reasons why the product's been developed. You know the reasons why certain things are not included and why certain features have been included, and that then means that final messaging is that much more compelling, cohesive, and comprehensive.
Yeah, but it isn't just like I know when we say go to market like GTM, but it isn't just go do, is it, Jessie? There is you influence,
Absolutely.
question, pushback. I mean, is that how does that interaction work? Because that is we talked about healthy tension, but how does that in practicality? Because there has been things we've done where we've got them into live and you've probably said from the outset, got major doubts on this, and other things where actually we've not gone any further. So how does the whole healthy tension, because you don't just represent like the delivery function, you represent RDS, you represent retailers, consumers, etc.
Yep. I think it's just being comfortable to challenge and know where to challenge. And I think as long as you say, like RDS consumer are being represented by people in RDS, people in GTM, and as long as we're surfacing it, we're having that conversation, and we talk a lot about what's the word I'm looking for? Disagree and commit.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a bit of that, but as long as we're going, have you considered this? We think this is going to be a challenge. We think we're going to get an objection on that. We think this is a really good idea. It doesn't always have to be negative challenge, pushback. I think because we are involved throughout that journey, we've got that seat at the table to do that, to represent our views, to represent RDS, to represent the consumers. I think it is just a bit of that. We've shared it. We'll move on with it. We might review and kind of see where we get to. Sometimes it's a bit, we prefer to boxing a lot in these conversations in the past, but it's healthy debate, isn't it? And it's just having that level of comfortableness to challenge and kind of go, well, I've brought that to the table. I've tried to influence as much as I can. Like, let's see where we go with it.
And do you think the reason, like, again, probably moving to like now rather than a number of years ago, that, like, seat at the table, invested in and engaged much earlier, is because there isn't that perception. It's like it's the no police.
Oh,
100%. It is like it's much more collaborative. It's like, the yes, that's brilliant.
Yep, absolutely. And we're not. I think probably historically we've been seen as not the blockers, but they're going to challenge us on this, and it's things
let's circumvent.
Like, quickly, let's just get it done and hop it over the fence, and we'll kind of go, whoa, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? I think now it's understanding that up front just makes it such an easier process when it comes to delivering something and executing on something. But yeah, it's not always negative. It's bringing good things to the table as well. Mm-hmm.
It's much easier to solve those problems if they're raised early.
100%.
Because if it's finished and it's like, here you go, deliver that, and it's wrong, you have to start again, basically. So
yeah, I'm not going to name examples.
You got that, Scott.
Yeah, you've got that scar.
There's a couple where I actually still feel physically sick when I think about it. Where, again, I don't think it was you, Jessie, on this one, but it was one where you're talking through it, and it's like it's literally going to go out, and GTM with our RDS, our sales colleagues, like the sales lead, you can see in the whites of their eyes they do not believe it. And I'm thinking, how, if they don't believe it, how are our sales force going to believe it? And then how are they, like when we roll it out, and it failed, which, good to fail, not like that. Really painful. So I mean, like,
the finish line.
So what mechanisms then? I mean, I know we talked about research and researching early and engaged in early, but just again, thinking of the life cycle. So we've gone beyond that initial research phase. So we know there's a market fit, whether it be consumer, retailer. We know that there's because we're a two-sided marketplace, we know there's benefits for the consumer, benefits to the retailer. But what mechanisms along the whole cycle, because that is still, we might be 9 months, 12 months away from launching. What's like the mechanisms we continue to use along the journey, like to, whether it's to keep RDS engaged, like this new thing's coming, or to engage retailers to signal it up, like what, as an organisation, if you're saying, right, brand new into products, I've just come in from wherever, I've landed, you're going to be taking this really important product from inception through to launch. What mechanism do you say? And these are all the things that we can do.
One of them is a Slack working group. We bloody love a Slack working group.
I think I haven't for these podcasts as well. Well, yeah.
I missed it.
There you go. And that's a way of literally keeping the conversation going at all times. Anything comes up, people can just input, share, like totally open it, and anyone's invited to join those working groups. I guess the other is that you'd have a regular get together of all of the stakeholders, possibly weekly. I guess it depends on the size of the project and the number of people, to keep up to date on the different tracks, whether it's research, design, feedback from RDS, delivery, whoever it might be. And it's a chance for everyone then to challenge. We spoke about bringing people on the journey early, but there's very few people on that journey that are just passengers.
Yep.
Everyone's involved, everyone has a voice, and everyone's sort of steering that ship. And it's those weekly catch-ups and that active working group that allow the conversation to be live and kind of ongoing throughout the whole process.
But early doors, it does feel like, again, from the outside, that it's like GTM at that point, a back of house. You know, there's a lot of cajoling, getting the right people on, and products are running with it front of house, probably doing a lot of the talking. When does it come where actually the sort of roles change and GTM, like yourself, Jessie, really come to, you've been there consistently with it, be challenging, supporting, cajoling, whatever words we need to use to get the dark arts to keep it going, that then actually you become like front of house where like the roles reverse a little bit.
Yeah, I think when we're in a position where we know we're ready to launch, and we've got to think about, you know, what's the value story and what is it that we're going out to retailers, to consumers, what are we saying to RDS. I think at that point, when we're kind of product like dev ready, obviously we'll be considering this all the way through, and to Dave's point, nobody's a passenger and everybody will be involved with that end goal in mind. So as we're kind of working through that development, you know, we will have people from trade marketing kind of with a finger on the pulse, so they can get a good understanding and build into like what that value story is going to be, and the position and piece and stuff. I think it's at the point we're ready to launch, and again, depending on the size of the initiative, we might do a big bang to all of RDS internal. We might have a huge trade marketing campaign where we're going to go out to all retailers. If it's consumer facing, there'll be a whole bunch of consumer marketing stuff that we do. So I think us leading up to that, that's when, for me, it kind of flips.
Is that when it becomes like, is that from a GTM perspective, is that the exciting time? Then like the, you know,
I think for some, probably, yeah. I quite like the ambiguous part. I quite like
the fighting.
I quite like the fighting. I quite like the challenging and the being the devil's advocate. But yeah, I think that's kind of you're getting your hands super dirty.
And just on the devil's advocate, do you do that again? Is it playing a role? Like, is that like, is it being contentious for contentious sake, or is it like, you know what I mean? Is it like, again, so someone new to GTM saying at this point in the project you need to be the arse, or you need to ask the awkward questions, because not everything is. I say sometimes it's like everything's great and we're all on the same page. So is it a role you play, or is it knowing that actually this one I do need to ask that, like I do need to like call the baby ugly, like this really, you're like, I'm looking at it and I just do not see
and
it.
it's putrid. No, it's not. I can't speak on behalf of everyone in GTM, but for me, I'm not doing it just to be an arse. It's with good intent. It's the intent is to add value, and to challenge based on my experiences in delivering other initiatives and working on other products or taking things to market. In some cases, it's trying to represent someone that maybe isn't in the room, so maybe trying to put my retailer hat on or put my RDS hat on and go, have we thought about this that might come in? And so it's not a tick. I've been a bit of a I've been one of them today. Yes, got that on me. Got that off me to-do list. It's with purpose.
Yeah, I'd love it if like Jess was walking around with a clipboard. The GTM handbook today, be a bit of an arse.
Be asked.
Tomorrow, be very supportive. But on Thursday, ask some really hard questions.
It's not too far on.
No. But is it, again, it's probably those ones where it's the relationship side. So
100%.
I know, like organisationally, we got product and tech, with GTM, we got RDS, like the different entities, different skill sets, but have to come together. Like, to really do it well, what does the relationship between, and because you're representing GTM, you're representing product tech, what does the relationship need to be like? Like, are you like ships sailing on totally different paths and just come together every now and again, or do you find you have like close working relationships that you build up?
I think the most important thing is trust.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're in that meeting, you have to believe that the other person is acting with like true intentions and for all the right reasons. So even if you do disagree, you know that the other person is acting with the right intentions, and then you can have a kind of professional argument, if you like, and then leave the room and be happy families again, because you know it was all for the right reasons, and that's how you'll get to the best result.
I like that phrase, professional arguments.
Yeah,
I'm a professional argumentor.
I think we probably all are, to be honest. But yeah, the path of least resistance is probably not the right path for the product. If you all get in the room and go, yeah, that's okay, like okay is not good enough. So you need to be picking those little areas that can improve, and that's what's going to get you to the best solution.
Yeah, I could totally agree. Mine was going to be that trust piece, and that, you know, that example we've just used where I'm not being an arse for being an unsafe. No, but I kind of get it. But it's like, I would like to think that, you know, Dave, product in this example, would have enough trust in me, a trust in GTM, that was saying it for the right reasons, or we're challenging, or we're being a little bit difficult, or we're pushing back for all the right reasons.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what could a sample, again, thinking someone's new and saying, you know, you may experience this type of pushbacks. Is it the product's not quite where it needs to be, or the sales peeps aren't ready, or the messages? And what kind of pushbacks are like atypical that we see, that you go, like, here we go, not quite here we go again, but it's a bit like, you know what I mean, this is something we're just not ready because?
I think in my experience, sometimes it's timing. So there's not necessarily a problem or a concern with what it is that we're trying to deliver. It's that we've got 1,000,001 other things to do. So in terms of that RDS readiness piece, it becomes really difficult to try and take up their time to get another thing on their agenda and another thing that they need to go and land with our customers. From a customer perspective, you know, you've got 12 different things being thrown at you. It's not the best of experiences. I think other examples is maybe where we're struggling to withdraw value from certain products and stuff. And that's, again, not that they're not valuable, but they're new. When you don't know what you don't know, it's difficult to try and articulate to someone who needs to deliver that to a customer, like, this is the positive and this is the value we want you to go and share, when it kind of isn't there yet. So we do get challenged on that a lot, but that's kind of why we'll do like a lot of betas and testing, and we'll be very clear in our position in that this is a test, and you're helping us shape, your feedback is invaluable, and we'll land things in ways like that.
Did you find, again, probably both of you being here for donkey's years, but did you find the whole things we are and the way we operate and the tools we used different when we went in and out of COVID? Because again, it feels like during that period I was working on a lot of stuff, and there was tooling and things like really starting to do like weekly webinars that like I'd never been involved with, so which we've continued to do on the webinar front. Did COVID change things from like how we take products to market, or is it like it was just we had the recipe and then we just sprinkled some new stuff in?
I think it's a bit of both. I think now that we're out of it, obviously we have quite a hybrid approach, which for me in my role and in that GTM space isn't always helpful. Sometimes it's not better than just getting in a room, having everybody there, and kind of everyone singing from the same hymn sheet. But equally, sometimes it is good to try and to kind of deliver things online. I think maybe like speaking to customers sometimes is a bit easier, if, you know, rather than having to wait till you can go and physically drive. And this is from an RDS perspective, not necessarily from my perspective. But if we need like quick feedback from a retailer, you know, we can jump on a Teams call and they can do that.
We never
used to have that, you know what I mean? We were like quite field-based, tele-based. So I think that is been a real positive for us in interacting with customers, definitely.
So do you feel like the feedback loop, Dave, has sped up
Yeah, I think so. I think we strike a nice balance now between that hybrid working and the face-to-face interaction. When you're having a heated debate, it's much easier to do that when you're in the same room, because otherwise you're on TV. Oh, I didn't quite hear you. Sorry, can you say that again? Everyone talks at the same time.
I'm mute.
Yeah. So those sorts of conversations are much easier to have face-to-face, and you communicate more than what you say. There's a lot of body language if you're in the room, and it's just easier to understand things as they are meant.
Yeah.
In that more heated moment, but to Jess's point, you can move a lot faster by arranging meetings. Within 30 minutes online, can I speak to you very quickly? So I think we strike a nice balance, which allows us to move faster and get that feedback loop certainly a lot quicker.
Yeah. It's interesting when you went one of your first earlier points around the working groups, having that as an open channel where people can drop in, because again, that was probably another tool we were really using much before, and in that way before COVID times. Do you find though, I don't know if it's a controversial question, but because everyone can input on everything, is that sometimes you find there's too many views and too much feedback where you can't distill it, or are you good at siphoning through and go, actually these are the key salient points where we can see that there's a bit of a trend there?
I think that's part of the job of the product manager, really, to hear everyone but really listen to those points that resonate with what the actual problem is you're trying to solve, because quite quickly feedback can end up going a little bit off piste, and you end up with wild and wonderful new ideas, which isn't quite what you're working on at that point in time. But it is valuable to have everyone in that conversation, because often it can be quite surprising who contributes that kind of like aha moment. You're like, wow, I'm so glad that you're in this conversation, otherwise we would have missed that.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Jess, on that sort of, again, do you find that, new working group, again, hints and tips, new working group, do you cajole and poke to try and then get that sort of, because it's a bit like that first follower, second follower. Once you get some people engaging and giving their views, then everyone starts to, it feels okay to give it, but it needs to be someone first and second to start saying, I'm going to give you a bit of critical feedback here. Is it you that always starts from a GTM perspective, starts the ball rolling, or are you like, throwing the ball up or giving a little prod? How do you get that momentum of feedback?
It's probably a bit of a mixture. I think for us, it's making sure that we know who the key stakeholders are who are going to share that feedback, making sure that the people we think are going to share that feedback again have got a seat at the table. But then sometimes it does just snowball. If it's a very big table with a lot of seats, which again today's isn't the worst thing in the world. But I think from through initial inception, initial kickoffs, talking about the delivery function specifically within GTM, we probably are people who will go, well, are we thinking about this? Are we thinking about that? Feedback, and then thinking about who we bring into the fold.
Yeah.
I worked at the Ministry of Defence when I was at university, and
this is new information.
We did all sorts of crazy stuff. It was like an amazing experience. One of the random training sessions that I went on was controlling riots.
Okay.
Yeah, not something that I rely on too heavily these days, but they spoke about riot number. And if you see a crowd of people, you look, riot number 1 is the person that's going to kick off.
Yep.
If you can control that person, you can control everyone. And I feel like it's probably similar in what you described there. If you can identify riot number 1, the person that's going to kick off this whole conversation and really open the floodgates for the ideas, you kind of indicate, throw the ball up to them, they can smash it down, and then it all just snowballs from there.
Yeah.
You're calling me a rider, are you, Zane?
Well, Jessie. No, because something just as we were talking, a number of years ago, everything seemed to be more formal boards. Yeah. And we still have a number of forums where ideas and where we're up to on the idea in terms of launching is at. But it feels like even the early phases went through those gates, whereas now it feels it's much more open, democratized, everyone can feed in, and those board type discussions are a bit more not as frequent and key stages along the way. As that going back to the first writer, second writer, etc., has that helped really come cultivate that sort of idea feedback loop? Is that another mechanism that maybe not intentionally, but it's just happened over time that has helped you as a product manager?
Yeah, I mean, often those groups are referred to as steering committees, and I think, you know, that's what it is. It's steering. It's not a yes/no. It's not like something needs to go, don't get rubber stamped. It's more, you know, nudging you in the right direction.
That's not the place where you only can have opinions either.
Not at all. Not at all. So yeah, I think the purpose of those sessions has changed in the last decade, which is, you know,
Sounds
how long we've been around. But yeah, they did used to be much more, you turn up with a business plan and it gets rubber stamped and then you go and deliver it, whereas now it's like an ongoing conversation, and it's much more steering and nudging in the right direction.
Yeah.
Feels like there's a bit more autonomy, doesn't it? A little bit more
Totally. More trust.
to play and more trust, yeah.
And does your role, product, GTM, this is probably my previous organisation, I remember saying it when I first got to our trade and people looked at me a little bit funny, but like, once it's live, is your job done? And it's like, leaders, drop the mic. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. I think as much as we are very fast paced and there will be an element of there is actually something else that we need to jump on, I think there needs to be that kind of always having a finger on the pulse, that in life, what feedback are we hearing now that it's out there? Are there any, like, is there any iterations of things that we need to get out? Like, do we need to fundamentally change anything? Is there operational stuff? I think it's kind of an always on thing. Like a product I was a delivery lead on like 7 years ago, I'm still kind of there. Just, we've got this, and I'm like, okay, like, it's not necessarily mine now, but you never kind of move away from it in its entirety.
Expectations are constantly moving, whether it's consumers or customers. So if you drop the mic and walk away, someone's going to be screaming at you to come pick it up again, because you need it. You can never relax. Basically, there's always going to need to be something changing or evolving to keep up with expectations. Keep that product market fit.
Keep it relevant. Yeah.
And the last question for you on this one is: do you find that, again, this is a new starter that's joining? Do you find that actually the relationship between products, GTM, is absolutely, like, if you're going to go like day one, you need to find who your person is. Is GTM? So it's probably Dave. Is GTM optional to you?
No.
Is it?
Good answer.
I was going to say you'd have got an absolute mark.
Yeah, I need to edge.
But is there like a level where actually, if we're doing X, Y, Z, GTM are optional, or is it GTM are always there and always needed? It's just the level of involvement might be a lot more lighter.
Yeah, I think that's right, because sometimes there's something big enough, you need to actively communicate it to customers, consumers, internally, whatever it might be. And sometimes it's more just preparing for something that's more responsive. By the way, this has happened. If you hear any questions, this is why we've done it. It doesn't need to be shared with everyone all the time, because a lot of our customer facing teams have got so much to know and handle and be up to date on, so hitting them with everything that's changed is not going to be helpful, but having that responsive comms ready is super vital.
And I think on your last point, and it's like the level that GTM are involved, and I think like our GTM function or tribe within the business is made up of different specialisms. You know, we have got a delivery function, we've got trade marketing, we've got strategy and insight. So again, I think there is a, like, what is it that we need from GTM? But there should definitely be someone always there.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So actually, the person from GTM over time. So it might be a constant. Say Dave's the product manager, but the person representing GTM may change over the cycle. Or is it the more you bring in, whether it's insights and strategy, or bring in trade marketing, you are a constant?
I think one that is a constant would be typically your delivery lead. You will always have a delivery lead aligned to an initiative. In the main, like trade marketing as well, depend like in terms of what we want to communicate, and then being really close to my point earlier that they've got a real clear understanding of what our value proposition is and stuff. But there are other functions in GTM that might play more of a pivotal part at different phases of that kind of like the life cycle of launching something. Yeah.
And last question for you both. So without with protecting the anonymity, I can't to say that word. Without naming
I'm not
names.
gonna try.
I know.
Yeah.
Why did I try to say that word? Can't say my own surname sometimes. So, without naming names, is there any particular where you go, oh, that was where I bore the scar, that experience that made me change the way I did things, or that was where I found the recipe where it really worked? Have you had those experiences, or have you always been lucky where it's gone pretty damn well?
Well, for the latter of those two, I think what really surprised me in my first product delivery experience was that the journey there was, as we have discussed, at times fairly brutal. You're having these professional arguments and getting lots of feedback that you might not be expecting, and you're having to change and pivot, etc., etc. And so when it got to that delivery point, I was thinking, I'm not sure everyone's really on board with this, because they've been pushing back quite a lot all the way through, and then it flicks and everyone's on board, everyone's behind the product, everyone believes in it, and then I was like, oh wow, okay, so this is a good idea. And it's that turning point when everyone's feedback's been taken on board, it's been implemented, everyone's on the same page, and then the message goes out that was a kind of like a bit of a aha moment for me. It was interesting to see. Yeah.
What about yourself, Jessie? Because you have been in GTM in various iterations for a while.
Yeah, I think we kind of a few years back adopted a bit of an end-to-end approach from a GTM perspective. So that example I used before, where it was a bit, product has done this, it's chucked over the fence. Oh, we're switching that on next week. Go and put a full GTM plan together and get it out there. And you're like, oh, that will have been thought about. I think for me, it's that collaboration now straight away has made a massive difference. And I just think, like, whether that be us driving it or like product and tech driving it, we would never operate in that way again. And collaboration between us as those functions is absolute key. And just that, and again, just having that visibility and that trust that, we can professionally argue with each other right from the very beginning.
Brilliant. So GTM, seat at the table, love it. Right, well, we are unfortunately out of time. I think people are trying to get into our meeting room, so that's not great. So that's a wrap. Thanks to Dave. Thanks to Jessie.
Thank you.
Like always, I know you two are on LinkedIn and be sharing this. But if people hit you up on LinkedIn, please answer their questions.
No doubt.
Cheers for tuning in. And remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. Hit the notification button so you don't miss an episode. And follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And that is done.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.